Here's how I'd like to do this. I'd like to just briefly give you an overview of our program and things that we do and things that we feel are that we do well, and then we'll do a quick overview of the offense, and then we'll dive into boot, and hopefully at the end I'll just sit down and we'll just watch clips of the film that I brought, and we can go from there. So real quickly, whenever I have a chance to talk about Richmond football, this is the image that I show. And if I could describe Richmond football in one image, this is the image that I would use. It's an image that took a long time to put together, and I know it seems really simple. It's just a PowerPoint slide with circles and text boxes and all that stuff. But when I talk to our team, when I talk to our coaches, this is always an image that we use, and this is an image that sort of guides our thinking and everything that we're doing. But I think the big thing, it's really nice and cute to make something like this, but it's the application of this image that I think is unique, and I think it helps us stay focused on what we like to stay focused on. So very quickly, I'll go through this, and then we'll move on. We teach an 8-week leadership course in the spring. We've done it in the summer as well, but it's just it's for our captains. If you want to be a captain, you have to come to this session. But we usually get about 15 to 20. Last year we had about 30 guys that just came in and just wanted to know more about being a leader and what it means to be a leader. And this is an image that we show, and we kind of go through the image throughout the 8-week leadership course and use different lessons and things like that to describe our football program and what we expect of our kids. So the bottom layer is what we call the blueprint, and that's something that we don't think will ever change. Whenever somebody comes in, a new player or a new coach or whomever it is, we start with that. Okay, so know yourself to us means know who you are, know who you're not, and be the same you all the time. I think that in everything that our kids get and do, there's a lot of inconsistencies in their lives. And I know that there's a philosophy out there that you should be as unpredictable as possible. And when a kid comes to you, they should not know who you're going to be that day. And you should, that keeps them on their toes. They should always be doing their best. And I think what I found in the short time that I've had the opportunity to be a head football coach is they like the consistency because they know what they're going to get. And they know that when they approach me with something, I'm going to be the same person every single time. And I think that our leaders on the team are the same way. So when our leaders complete this course, hopefully they can say who they are, what are their core values, who are they not, what are their weaknesses, and then what makes them consistent throughout the season. Know your team is about inspiring passionate hearts. It's about relationships. What we tell our leaders is we need you to be able to lead in a way and connect with others in a way to allow them to be successful in a way they could not have had you not been a part of their lives. So when a kid wants to be a leader on the team, it's very easy to relate with the people that you get along with. It's very easy to be friends with the guys you've been friends with your whole life, but it's very difficult to connect with somebody who's not like you and looks different than you and grew up in a different part of town than you. So our leaders really need to be people that build relationships and allow people to be successful in ways they could not have had they not had that person a part of their lives. Attitude and effort, certainly not indigenous to our program. I'm sure many of you use that, those core values as well. Nor are the definitions indigenous to our program. They're words and definitions that we've kind of adopted, but I think the application of the two are things that maybe make us unique. So attitude to us would be defined as not allowing circumstances to dictate your feelings or behaviors. What we tell our kids is there's the event, and then there's what you tell yourself about the event. And so we say, and we use it in football terms, of course, I threw a pick, that's the event, and it was bad. That's what I told myself about the event. And so if we can get kids to frame adversity in a different way and look at conflict in a different way, I think once they leave our football program, they are able to deal with adversity in a more productive way. So also important, at the beginning of the season, our kids get to pick for their helmet. Right in between, and some people put their team name, Tigers or whatever their team name is, in between their helmets. Our kids get to choose between attitude and effort. And so it's a literal representation of what is important to them, but we also want somebody to see across the field from them what their core value. So it's a way for them to express themselves a little bit and be unique, but within the parameters of our football program. Okay? Effort to us is evidence. It's relentless evidence that what you're doing matters to you. A couple of years ago, we invested in buying a drone. for our practices. And so we're down in this little bowl where we practice. It's not a very good place to get end zone camera film, so we bought a drone, and we have this little kid that flies a drone around all practice, and we tell him what we want him to see, and it's pretty neat. But what I tell him is, at certain times I want you to just let the film run, and I want to see the transitions. And I want to see kids running off the field and on the field, and I want to see them change drills or move to different places on the field. And that's the film that we'll spend a little bit of time on the next day. So we will evaluate some of the effort things, some of the things that the guys are doing on the field, and we'll allow them to just kind of see themselves on the field and what they're doing, and assess their effort, because those are the things that are most important to us. The next step up, process, the way, the vision. Process is just, the way that we do things is unique to us, and everybody's got a different process, and it's important for you as a player to buy into what we're doing, because we think that it works. Okay, the way is the way that we do things, and it's unique to us, as I said. And when you're a part of our program, there are certain things that will be unlike other places that you go. So the process, the way, the vision, that's what we hope you see every single day. I wrote off to the side some notes on vision because I think it's the most important thing. This last year, the image that's in the center, I went to a graphic artist in town. He's our picture guy. He takes our team pictures and he does some graphic design on the side. And I said, I want you to like literally make my vision. I want you to, so that I can show our team. Okay. And so what I did is I took just an image offline. I'm sure it's copyrighted, so let's keep it between us. But I said, I need you to, I'm going to describe my vision to you, and I need you to bring it to life, okay, so that I can show our team, and so that I can have a way to express what it is and the place I want to go. Okay, so I had him change all the fans to orange. In my mind, there's 80,000 people at the state championship game, and they're all wearing orange. Okay, I had him take one of the teams and make it orange, and then the opponent just kind of gray it out, because I don't care who we're playing. All right, just make them black and white, and leave the color out of them, because it doesn't matter to us. I always say to the kids, I say, and I'll read the notes in a second, but it has to be a sensory experience when you describe your vision. Okay? I always say to them, I can tell you what the temperature is at kickoff. I can tell you what the brats smell like as they cook, during the football game. I can tell you where the sun is. I can tell you everything about that experience. And I need you to find a way to buy into that vision, and be a part of that vision. Okay? The movie, I communicate a lot through movie lines with them. It's pretty effective. But the movie we use for that one is Inception. If you've seen Inception, you know that whole thing is about just creating an idea and planting it in someone's mind, and then letting them take that idea and form it into their own. And I think that's what vision is. And I think that's what teaching people how to buy into a vision is. And so when we talk about vision, we talk about that movie Inception. And so this is my attempt at planting that seed in them and saying, how can you see yourself as a part of my vision? Because that's mine, you can't have it. But what can you do to be a part of that vision? You need to make it your own, okay? And then the final, kind of the overarching theme, break the elephant rope. There's a story that goes with it, I won't share it, but it's the idea of it is, it's our refusal to believe that the limitations imposed on us by others limit our potential as individuals. So, and the example I use is, when I started, and I'll show you this, excuse my voice. When I started, we were coming, this is a kind of a recent history in the Richmond football, and in no way is, the last 5 years, that's certainly not the best in the state. But the point in showing this is that we found something that works. We believe in what we're doing, and we've come a really long way in what we're doing. And so the idea, I remember standing in front of our team in 2014, right before we played River Falls, and we had been beaten by them and just about everybody that we played for the last 14 years, and we said, you know what, we're just not going to be limited by that idea that we're not good enough anymore. And so, we went out and won that game and won a lot after that, but the idea was that, you know what, don't tell me what I can or cannot accomplish. Let me show you. Let me show you what I can do. Let me show you through my hard work that I'm better than what you think. Okay, and for a very long time in Richmond, there's been a belief that we're just not good enough. we were 43 and 96, and I think if you take that year out, 2010, where we had a 9-3 season, I think that that's an outlier if you look at the rest of the records up there. If you take that out, we had 34 wins in 14 years. So when we walked in 2013, we had a lot of people that didn't think we could do anything, and they were expecting a similar result. So that overarching theme of our program is just about, you know what, don't you keep that opinion to yourself, because what we're going to do is different, and we don't believe that, okay? And so I shared this with our team this last year, as we entered the playoffs, is we've won 35-5. Is that the best in the state? No. Do we have a long way to go? Yes. That's like literally half of what Kimberly's done, so but let's not go there right now because this is about us. Okay? But that's impressive to us, and you know, we've certainly, the status quo has changed for us, and now we're looking for the next step and where we're going to go. But you know, as I said, I think it's, for us in our program, it's just about, there's limitations placed on all of us, and forget it, we're just not going to believe it. Okay? Here's a quick overview of our offense, our philosophy. We believe in multiple simplicity, and what that means to us is we're going to do a lot of things. We may not do one thing great, but we'd rather do many things pretty well. Okay? We think that it allows us a lot of variety in what we're doing offensively. We really do have a limited number of plays that we run. I'll show those in more detail in just a second. But, you know, as I think, you know, like I would compare, like what Anala's going to talk about this afternoon, we'll use our formation shifts, personnel groupings, our motions, just to kind of disguise what it is that we're doing. Also, I think one of the big things for us has been including many players in specific roles. We've got, you know, we certainly don't have, you know, Division I athletes coming out of our ears. We've got guys that go off and play a lot of Division III football, which is fine. I think you can win a lot of games with that, and those kids are pretty gritty kids that go off and play that type of football. But what I think is important is finding roles for those kids and not eliminating them from your football program based on who you think they are and who they think they are. I think that they all have an idea of who they are as they come up throughout the program, but it's up to us to find roles for those guys so that we can keep them engaged in football and keep them out for football. Okay? So I think that, you know, offensively, we've had guys that go in on one personnel grouping. When we call the cheetah personnel, that one kid is coming out of the field, and that's his role, and he embraces that role, and he loves that role, and that's our way to get him involved in what we're doing. So I think that the offensive simplicity has allowed him to compete at our level, but it's also the variety has allowed us to keep him off when we don't need him on. Quick overview of our offense. Run game, we run zone. I think we'd prioritize that first. And each off-season, including this one, we have a discussion, you know, what are we running really well? What are we not running so well? But it's all within the parameters of this. You know, we're not saying, hey, what's going to be our offense next year? We say, this is our offense next year, but who's returning and in what ways can we prioritize our offense so that we can get the most out of our kids? We run a zone scheme, a down scheme, and then I would say ISO. And the reason I put that up there is because you could list, I think, any play that you run, and we could find a way to fit it into either the zone scheme or the down scheme. Okay? And I'll talk about tags in a minute, but that's how I think we would get that multiple simplicity in our offense. Pass game is pretty simple. We don't do anything crazy in our pass game. Offensively, we installed the offense in 2013. Kind of the origins of the offense was when I got over to Park from Tartan. When I was at Tartan, we ran the Tony Franklin system, which was all passing. You know, he'd yell out the plays and purple 7 or whatever it was. You know, so we did that for a year, and there was like 2 run plays in that whole offense. At least that's the only ones we ran. Okay, and then when we got down to Park, we were kind of I don't know, inspired maybe, or we kind of took some from the end zone system, the Malmazzoni system. So we took some ideas from that, and then when we got over to New Richmond, our offensive coordinator, Jason Eckert, had some ideas. He was a jet sweep guy, and so we incorporated some of that stuff. So 2013, it was kind of like a spread offense. It was a spread offense, but it had some power eye concepts. It had some of that Tony Franklin stuff. It had some of the end zone stuff, and again, it was like this big. And we sat down in the offseason, and there were like 1,000 plays. we said we got to find a way to refine this. So 2013 was kind of our trial run there, and then 14 through 17 has been really refined. And we've taken everything that we've ran in 13 and just said, here's what we're going to run, and so we're running zone and running down, and that's it. All right, and then some different passes off of that. I talked about attitude, and I talked about a little bit of adversity. This year was a tremendously adverse year for us. It was the strangest year of high school football I've ever been a part of in my life. We canceled our week 2 game, which is, we canceled a football game. We had a norovirus outbreak on our team. We had like 20 guys puking, and it was a really bad deal. And so we canceled a game. Both of our kickers, we had 2 soccer kids. They're soccer kids. They don't even play football. They both of them broke their leg. Both kickers break their legs. So we're in the first round of the playoff game. We're on the 5-yard line, down by 3, and we don't have a kicker. Okay. So again, just adverse situations. But I think the neat thing about this is, even in those adverse years, we're still averaging 30 points a game. And 6 wins, and so that, as I showed on that previous slide, I think it's certainly changed a lot, and I think that the simple offense has contributed to that in a lot of ways. So we run zone, run down, and then we'll run a limited number of pass plays. Here's what tags are. So, and everybody uses them. We just use them in different capacities. Tags are to us. They create the offensive flexibility for mostly our skilled kids. And the responsibilities for the guys up front will not change a lot, okay? It gives the illusion of an entirely different play, while really there's just minimal changes within the offense. And then, we think that it gives us the chalk last. So when we watch film or we're scheming for a team, we think that with a tag we can simply change a play to allow it to be a little different to give us the chalk last. Here's an example. This would be an example for an inside zone play, okay? So 2 and 3 would be our inside zone. So if we're running 2, that would be zone to the right, inside zone to the right, and 3 would be inside zone to the left. And then we could tag 2 and 3 with any one of these words based on what we're seeing on defense. So for example, if we call 2 book's just going to be your double option play. Okay, if we call 2 back, our back and tackle will switch responsibilities. If we call 2 fan, we're going to leave the nose. We're just, this originated from back in the day when we couldn't block anybody. And they said, well, if you can't block them, read them. And I'm like, how do you block every single guy, or how do you read every guy? We can't block any of them. So we had to identify a guy on this play that we were going to read and give a guy a play off. And then the next play, figure out we're going to read this guy so that we can give that kid a play off. So we certainly don't have every single one of these in every year. Nor do we have them in every week. These are sort of based on what we're seeing and how we're going to scheme against that team. So we think that with our tags, you could line up in anything, and we could tag it and create a mismatch. This is important because in our bootleg, we'll do the same thing. So in our pass game, we'll do the exact same thing. Why do we run boots? We think it puts second level defenders in conflict. I'll show some clips in which that occurs. It's a very high percentage throw. In 2013, it was a 51% pass completion for us. The last 4 years, it's been over 70%. In 2016, it was 81% and 0 picks. I think we had 9 touchdowns off of it. You don't need a strong thrower to complete it. I think in 2015, we had a pretty strong thrower. The last 2 years, we really haven't had a strong thrower. Pretty athletic kid, but a kid that was, not able to complete the really deep passes. So within the boot, he was able to take a deep shot, which we needed at times, but he was also able just to dump it off and make a 3-yard throw that will, get an athlete in space and allow that guy to pick up a lot of yards. The play enables the quarterback to get to the edge. We'll talk about our progression in a second, but as the kid is headed out, as he's rolling out, he's going through his progression, and when he reaches a certain point, he's just going to take off. So if that's what happens every single play, we would feel okay. That would be a pretty good play. It's good versus the blitz. I'll show some protections that we use. It's got a big play potential every single time. It's a half-field progression, and if we want to go to the backside, we will tag it, and I'll explain that in a second as well. And then like our run game, we can just change things, really anything with the tag. So here's our quarterback progression. And this is the way that I would teach it when we do our freshman camp, or when we're talking with our younger kids. This is the way in which I would teach this pass. I always tell them, just hold out one hand and put 4 fingers up. Okay? If we're running 200, the play's a 200 play, we're running the play to the right. If it's a 100 play, we're running to the left. Okay? If you are, when you get up to your place, you figure out which receiver you are. So let's say we're in a 2x2 set. So there's 2 guys on either side. 1 always has a stretch, 2 always has a flat, 3 always has a shadow, and 4 will have to climb. Okay? So when the kids line up and they're just getting started, they're on their fingers. And they're standing there with their fingers out, stretch, flat on the flat. Okay? So now, and I tell them this once they get up to the older levels, that those are our rules, but just like everything else in football, the rules will be broken. Okay? So when we start adding tags, some of the rules get changed and modified, but the concept will remain the same. So our progression for the quarterback, as he comes out of his fake, sometimes it'll be a play action play, other times it'll just be a rollout play. We could run it out of both. But as soon as he leaves his fake, his eyes go to his stretch. Alright? So he's going to sneak a peek at that kid. And we'll show some clips where we talk about cushion and different things like that. But if when he sneaks a peek, he's got the guy beat, or he believes he can get the kid beat, he'll take a few steps, set up, and throw the deep ball. It doesn't happen very often. The stretch is a pass that we don't throw a lot. Okay, but what that route does is it gets people out of that space. Okay, so we'll blow the top off of that thing and create some space underneath. Flat, never turn down a profit. So as he sneaks a peek, he'll come down to his flat right now. If that kid's open, he's throwing the ball every time. Okay, and again, that's just if he's got that guy, throw a 3-yard pass and let the kid run. Okay. Next one is the shadow, and the shadow route will be easier to describe on film, but it's a route that's at 10 to 12 yards, and it's mirroring the quarterback. So depending on where the route comes from and how the route is run and the split, the route might look different each time, but the goal is to get in the same position. Then the next progression just be run. If we want you to throw the backside route, whether it's a post or whether it's a real climb route, we'll tag it. We'll say 203 climb, look to the climb. Okay, and then that kid would treat that route like a stretch. So as he comes out of his fake, he would take a few steps and then look to the backside to the climb. But it's not a thing where we want the kid to go stretch, flat, shadow, climb, and then get killed. We want him to take off. And if we see that route open, then we'll throw that route. I don't know why there's animation. I'm sorry. Alright. So the outside, here's just an example. This would be a west, we call this west formation, 2 guys in the backfield, the slot out to the right. But the stretch, this is 203. Okay, so the number 1 receiver, he's got the stretch, he's got a mandatory outside release, he's saving space. So our normal alignment would be on the top of the numbers, and as he makes his break, he's going to save space so he'll get to the bottom of the numbers. If the quarterback makes that throw, he's at least got that 7-yard space to throw into. Okay? The next one is the flat. Again, if we're running 203, 200 protection, we're having this guy as a ball fake. This kid's screaming out of the backfield. This route will change based on the alignment of this guy, and I'll show you that one in a second. But out of the backfield, it needs to be fast, because as this fake happens, these 2 guys are going to time up, and they're going to be in unison. The shadow route, which is not showing up, is a 10 to 12 yard route that comes across the field like this. The idea with the shadow is to get there as fast as possible. So when we watch film, there are plenty of clips where the kid pushes vertical and he gets stuck on this route and he doesn't get the timing right. What he needs to do is get off the line as quickly as possible and then find a place at 10 to 12 yards where he's mirroring the position of the quarterback. Then our climb, and the route will change based on alignment. It'll change based on the type of coverage that we get. It'll change based on the bubble of space that we identify. But real simply, if there are 2 safeties up there, he's going to split the difference. If there's 1, he's going to try to get right in front of that kid's face. Okay? Alright. I don't know why these are. Do that. I didn't do that, by the way, but I will take credit for it. So here's a different look. This is a different formation. Now we have a tight end attached from the backside. We've also taken the guy that's running the flat and moved him out to a slot receiver position. So again, the routes are the same: stretch, flat, shadow, climb. The guy on the outside is running a stretch. He's got his mandatory outside release, safe space at the bottom of the numbers. Now we've added a slot receiver and we've put a guy out there that needs to kind of delay things up. So what we'll do is we'll call that just a whip route. So all he'll do, and this isn't rocket science, it's pretty simple. If he were to run a speed out, he would be about here by the time the quarterback gets out of his break. So with his whip, and the whip will look different, than this line, but he'll try to come inside a little bit and just delay his route so that by the time the quarterback gets into a position to throw the ball, he's in a good position to catch the ball. Okay? Again, if he's screaming out of there, the quarterback's a heck of a long throw and a difficult throw to complete. Shadow and climb, both of those are the same. Nothing changes on the backside for a guy that's attached. So now this is the same formation, we just flip sides. Now we have a tight end that's attached to the play side, so he's running the flat route. Again, he's got to delay his route just for timing purposes. If he gets out of there too quick, it's not going to work. So what he'll have to do on that play is just block down for 2 seconds. And that's just a general rule. It'll change based on the defense. And this guy could be back here as a wing back, which we'll see on film, or he could be attached. But his idea is, get the protection to go down this way, delay 1,000, 2,000, and then slip out the flats, again for timing purposes. If we were to run this play as a sprint out play, we might not use that. That delay might not be as long. So he might, if this kid's just stepping up in protection and the quarterback's rolling out, this kid might just be running more like a speed out. Same play, just a different way to run it. Now we start getting into some of the tag stuff. And I neglected to say on that first slide with protection, the protection for this play would look a lot like power. If you look at that play, if you were to remove the concept of the play altogether, the play might look like power a lot, which is kind of the intention of that. But the guys on the front side of the play would be down blocking. So they would go down, 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 and then we would have close a question mark. It'll look like, he'll come flat down to the line, and then he'll kind of, run a question mark block. His goal here is to get that kid inside of him. So if the defensive end comes up the field, which hopefully he's influenced by the down blocks, he's stepping down with the down block, also influenced by the fake head this way, we think that as the guard pulls around here, he might have a good shot to pin him inside, which would be a great result for the quarterback who wants to get out to this space. If he doesn't, let's say the kid, has seen the play 100 times, or he's, just reads it really well. If the kid screams up the field, the guy will run his mark and just kick him out. He'll run the question mark block and just kick him out. And the quarterback will just know that he doesn't have the freedom to roll out that way. He'll just set up back here and throw the route that he can get. All right, so here's how the tags work. The tag, most of the time, will go to the number 2 receiver unless we've schemed it into the play. Okay, so in this case, we call it 203 bench. 203 bench. Flood concept, the guy's sitting in space. So the number 1 receiver still got his stretch. Now the number 2 receiver is going to take the tag. In this case, it's the bench route, so he's running the bench. Number 2 receiver, and number 2 receiver get up to 10 yards and he's going to sit in space in this route. Okay, now we're going to pick up where we left off with the old number 2 route, which was the flat after the tag. Number 3 receiver will run the flat and the climb will always stay there. So we've just eliminated the shadow. Number 2 receiver's gotten the tag. Here's a very similar play, just sort of illustrating the the variety, depending on where you want a kid to be. Same concept, it's just a flood route rather than a bench route. The kid would be headed towards the sideline if he's got a different coverage out there on him. Everything else is the same. Just a different option. Again, the tag will go to number 2. Number 1 will run the stretch. Number 2 will run the tag. In this case, the tag is a stretch, so he's going to run the stretch. There's going to be a lot of space, hopefully, underneath. If not, we might have a shot over the top. Number 3 receiver, in this case, it's back. He set it out to the flat at 3 yards. And then we've got the climb there. But again, we're not going to throw the climb unless we've tagged it. So here's an example in which the rules don't apply. And, that's how we explain it to our kids is, we need you to understand the basics of the play, but just understand as we get into game week, we might have to scheme a different way to run the play. So in this case, the grab tag is going to go to the number 1 receiver. And there's a couple clips of this that will show. It's a good, if you look out at that one, it looks like a rub route. It's a good man beater. So we'll just flip those 2 routes. We'll run a grab route where he's headed in just to try to occupy the space that the outside backer or strong safety or whomever it is out here occupied. So he'll get into his space, allow this kid to head out that way to run the stretch route, and then everything else remains the same. Shadow and climb. Another tag. So again, and we're talking off inside zone for most of this stuff. Could we run it off of a power play? Yes. Could we run it off of ISO? Yeah, we could run. Obviously you can run play action stuff off of anything, or bootleg off of anything. So in this case, one of our inside zone tags is bend. So our back would block the end. So if we're running inside zones this way, we're leaving this bubble of space open. This guy's headed over to block the defensive end. So as we run bear, we're running bend on air. We're blocking down like this, hopefully to influence this kid. He might think that bend is coming back his way. This kid's just going to slip into the flats. Same play, just a different tag, just a different way to run it. Okay, and then think about the ways in which you can disguise the play with your formation, with your alignments, with your motions, with your shifts, all different things as to which way they're going to run the play.
Yeah, who's running vert one time?
Yeah, so just based on their protection. So when we call the play, and really 203 and 102 are, we didn't use that this past year, but if we were to use it, our 200 pass protection would be pass protection to the right, so the play's headed to the right, 100 being to the left.
So back block, backside, and elbow.
Right, yeah.
There you go.
The space that the guard vacated with his pull, the running back will have to insert there.
But in your doubles, then you always, is it always stretch, and the other one was what?
Stretch flat, shadow climb.
But how does it go stretch flat from right to left?
See, so if let's say I call 203, so the pass protection's to the right, so the guy on the right is the number 1 receiver.
Okay.
So he'll go stretch flat, shadow climb. If I call 102, plays starting from the left, so he'll just go stretch flat, shadow climb. So again, when they're real little, if there's freshmen, they're out there like this, and then as they get better, they better not be doing that. Okay.
Remote if you want.
All right, so this is a 203 play, so I'll play headed to the right, and this is the first game, so it's certainly not perfect. But I'll again, if you guys were players and we were in the room watching this clip, we'll just go through the clip as it exists now and the ways in which we would change it. So again, the play headed out to the right. The receiver over here is the number 1 receiver. He's got the stretch. Okay, so as the quarterback comes out of his break, he's going to sneak a peek at that guy. If that guy's open, he's going to throw it. And we'll talk about different ways in which he might be open. When we scheme this stuff, when we look at the guys on the field, one of the things we're looking at is his hip angle and the cushion that he's given our wide receiver. Okay? We've kind of gone away from talking to our quarterbacks in terms of coverage because I think a lot of times, and this is my opinion, I think that sometimes we struggle to identify the coverage because sometimes the kids on the other side might not know what they're doing. And so we've spent many times where we're looking at the film and we're like, I think it's cover 2, but I'm not sure because what the hell is that kid doing? And then you try to talk to your quarterback about it, hey, the kid's in cover 2, and he's like, well, what's that kid doing? And then you don't have an answer. You know what I mean? So what we talk to our kids about is bubbles of space. Okay, you can run any defense you want in any coverage out there. There's always going to be a 4 or 5 bubbles of space depending on what you run. Okay, so when we talk to our quarterbacks about it, we talk about bubbles of space. All right, and that's far too much information to get into now. But essentially, what the quarterback is looking at, he's looking for these voided areas on the field. And yes, it sounds very simple. It's a little more complicated than that, but simply, he's just looking for the bubbles of space. So if you were to look out to this guy, of course, we'd have a scheme and plan. We'd say, hey, this kid's a stud. Don't throw it to him. Stretches out, all right, unless the kid falls on his face, okay? But we look at this guy, say he's got a zone hip angle, and he's below the heart, he's below 7 yards, so that bubble of space is covered, Okay, the bubble of space on top is open, and then based on the scheme, we might say, yeah, he's open, give him a look, or forget him, move on to the next guy. Okay, so number one has the stretch. Here's the flat. We would consider this guy an attached guy, even though he's a slot receiver. If you take a step forward and put your hand in the dirt, he's the same guy. All right, so he's going to have to delay his release out to the flat. What he really should be doing is just bumping this guy out on the edge just for a second. And as we watch the clip, we'll see that he does not do that. All right, he kind of leaves it. The nice thing is, the down block from the offensive line, as well as the play fake in the backfield, influences this guy enough for our guard to get in position. So as the guard comes out there, he's allowed the quarterback a little bit of space to get into. Okay. Number 3 receiver over here, number 7 down here, he's got the shadow. And again, you can see in this clip that he pushes vertical and then gets across the field. Really what he needs to do is get on a line right now and get to 10, 12 yards so that by the time the quarterback's ready to throw him the ball, he's ready. And then the climb is the last route in this one. Again, we're not looking at that one unless we tag it. Okay? So as the play develops, we can look out at that guy. The number 1 receiver got jammed off the line of scrimmage. He's out. He's out right now. We might keep eyes on him just to influence a defensive back, but he's out. He's not getting the football. Okay? Then we're headed down to the flat. The flat kind of got tangled up a little bit in the line, so he's covered. All right? So he's going to go stretch, not open, flat, number 2. Number 3 right here is my safety blanket. We put this guy in conflict because of the route. He jumped on the flat route, and we got the shadow creeping up right behind him. So that's what the quarterback does. He takes the shadow, a decent play. We'll just watch a couple of these from the end zone just so you can see the protection. But again, you can see that our right tackle has leverage on this kid, so we know that he's going to block down on this one. We're going to block down here. We're going to, it's slide protection essentially. The big guy here is just going to step inside and cover this space. What 24 really needs to do is just occupy this edge, not let this guy penetrate too much off the edge, and allow the guard to come through and pick him out. Okay? So again, the nature of the play influences the defensive end enough where the guard can get into position. And there's a shadow opening up behind. Again, it's first game of the season, not pretty. Here's the same game later in the game. Again, so a lot of the issues still exist. The reason this one's in here is we can see a different hip angle. So we can see a man hip angle. We can still see the same type of pressure off the edge, or in the perimeter, excuse me. We can still see that this guy's below 7 yards. He's still taking away that bubble of space below the hard deck, and we can see that the bubble of space above is open. All right. So again, in my head, if I scheme this, if I say, hey, our guy's not very good and this kid's a stud, we're not going to throw it. If it's flipped or it's even, we might give him a look. Okay. In this particular formation, we've got an attached tight end. So the attached tight end should again pick up the space off the edge after the down block goes, and then he should count 1,000, 2,000, and release into the flat. Shadow on the backside, climb as their number 4 receiver. So again, if I look at my outside guy, I'm sneaking a peek at him right now. He's even with him. So based on my scheme, if I think he's got him beat, I might take a peek at it, but all I'm doing is sneaking a peek. It's not a very high percentage throw, so I'm coming down after that. Taking a look at my tight end. He drifts a little bit. His goal is 3 yards, so he started to drift, which is obviously not acceptable because he's going to run into the guy behind him and take his space away. So he needs to come down and get flat. He does an okay job leveling off, but again, the shadow opens up behind based on the conflict to put the defender in, and it's a big 3rd down play. Here's a good example of a role player. This little tight back here has no business playing high school football. All right? He's like 5'6", 108 pounds. All right? But he gets open in space. We throw him the ball. All he has to do is hold on at this point. He does a nice job. Big 3rd down play. Here's another one, boot. So now we've got Robbie. So this is a 3-by-1 formation. We've got a split end out here. We've got our slot receiver, our tight end, split out in this space, and then we've got a running back over here. So we're going to motion into this one and get it back into a 2-by-2 look, and then everything else stays the same. The play's headed to the left, so in this case, the stretch would originate over here, stretch. Our number 2 receiver would run the flat in this space, shadow behind him, and then climb into the end zone. So here's a good example of our guard not being able to get into position. Again, another kid that really is significantly outsized in football, but does a nice job just because of the way he plays the game, his leverage and things like that. So he misses this guy. Now the quarterback doesn't have the option to continue to roll out into this space, so he's got to set up and make a decision right now. He's looking out in this space. He's got, based on this guy's hip angle, he's not going to be able to get any route behind him, so he's going to throw the ball over the top of him into the shadow route. No motion in this one. Headed to the right, 203, so we've got stretch out here, flat, shadow, climb. An attached tight end, really as a fullback. Now this is a playoff game from 2 years ago, so we do a much better job with our protection. Also got a kid who's been around for a while in that role in this game. So what he does is this guy comes off the edge. We've still got the down block from the right tackle influencing that kid, but we've got him all he has to do is just kind of get in his way. It should be maybe a little bit longer, 1/1000, 2/1000, and then release. Again, sneak a peek. Is this a good coverage, or is this a good space to throw the ball into? Absolutely not. There's a significant cushion on top of this guy. So he will come off that route right away. He's looking into the flat. Never turn down a profit. All right. Dump it off to the fullback. Fullback catches it, and he can get up the field. That's a very nice play there for a 3-yard pass. Could he come off and thrown it to the shadow? Maybe. Maybe not. Either way, never turn down a profit and get out to the next guy. Play to the left, this is 102, so again, stretch on the bottom of your screen, flat, shadow, climb. Start getting into tags in just a moment here. On this one, when we talk about the shadow route, or excuse me, the flat route, he does a nice job of getting lost in there, but again, you can see that he really drifts. He probably catches the ball at about 5 yards. If he delayed it a little more, and these guys are in better proximity to one another, the route would bump into the shadow route, which is, it's not complicated. It needs spacing out there for that route to go the way it's supposed to go. But again, dump it off to the flat, never turn on the profit, get it up to the next guy. All right, so we're in this particular formation. We're in a 3-by-1 bunch formation off to the right, and we're running the play to the left. Okay, so the rules will not change. There's still 4 guys up there, so if he's a little freshman out there and we're in a 3-by-1 formation like this one, we know that the stretch is going to come from the guy on the left. He's the number 1 receiver. The number 2 receiver is that slot guy on the right side of the screen, right off the right tackle's butt. He's the number 2 guy. So if number 1 over here is running the stretch, he's got the flat. So he's got to, right on the heels of the defensive lineman, get to 3 yards and run his route across the field. Number 3 is the guy that is he's on the line of scrimmage over there on the other side. He's got the shadow, and then the other kid's got the climb on the back side. So a different formation, it's the same exact play. There's the flat that pops open. And it's a team that's playing man coverage against us, so the stretch really does a nice job of vacating the space over here. And then we put these guys in conflict, even though it is man coverage, obviously. The speed at which this guy comes off the ball, he's able to beat his man. Again, there's that little kid that is a role player, catches the ball in space and gets up the field. All right, so now we can get into some of the tags and some of the more complicated tags or tags that maybe break the rules that we talked about at the beginning. So this is a 203 play, so a play headed out to the right. So under normal circumstances, and I believe we've got S motion in this, so we're going to motion over to a 2-by-2 set. Really, here's the stretch on the outside. The motion has put this guy in the position to run the flat. He's the number 2 receiver. We've tagged it with the word. Yogi to us would mean that we're gonna swap responsibilities for the back 2 guys. Okay, so under normal circumstances, this kid would run the shadow at 10 to 12 yards, and this kid would run the climb. When we call swap or yogi, whichever word we're using, we're just going to switch the routes. Now this guy back here is going to run the shadow. This guy's going to run the climb, and really out of this stuff it would be a post. Okay, but just a different way to run the play. It's the same exact play for everybody else. Very simple for the up front guys, but a wide variety for the skilled kids. So again, we're looking out to the stretch, sneak and peek. There's our tight end or our fullback, just kind of to land his route out into the flats. Now, as we watch this one develop, we see the climb right here. But again, we're telling him we're not going to throw that route unless we tag it. That's something that we would have seen from upstairs, and we would have communicated that down to the kid to say, hey, next time we come back to this play, if we get this look, we might tag it with a climb, so that's the first place it goes. Okay, but you know, it doesn't matter because of the conflict that these guys have put it on the front side of the play. The shadow comes open as well. So as the play develops, there's the flat. We've got two guys on this guy. The shadow opens up behind him. Easy throw for the quarterback, and get the athlete in space. So here's our grab play. This is not a very well-run grab. There's a better example, but you know, just illustrates another use of the tag. So we're bringing a guy across the motion. We're in that bunch formation to the left. As the guy comes across the formation, he's just going to continue on his path out. So this guy's running the grab. So his path here would be to head inside and occupy the space that the outside backer, in this case, as the coverage rolls down, the safety would have occupied. Okay? And you know, hopefully he just kind of sets a screen on that kid, which he doesn't do in this one. It's not a very good route. It needs to be run a little deeper. But the idea would be to get in front of this guy, occupy his space, and then send the stretch up the field. You might give the stretch a little bit more time in that one, but again, we're looking down to the flat. That's not open, the shadow, and then the Clyde if it's tagged. All right, so here's another creative way to add some variety into the things you're doing with very simple things. Nothing throughout this entire deal has changed for the guys up front. It's still 200 protection or 100 protection based on the direction of the play. But now we've identified different bubbles of space on the field, so we're trying to get our guys into those bubbles of space based on the alignment of the defense. So if I were to run a stretch into this route outside, it might not be a good route because as you can see, as soon as the ball snapped, that guy's he's getting his depth. So if I run a stretch into that, obviously it's not going to be open. All right. So in this case, we have I wouldn't call it a passing tree. It's just based on the routes that we run the most often, we would give them a number, and then we would be able to dictate the routes to the receiver based on the numbers we assign them. Okay. It's very simple. The kids pick it up pretty quick. So in this case, we've taken our stretch. This is a bench concept, so we've got a stretch. Number 2 would normally run the tag as a bench. Number 3 would run the flat. We've just switched their routes. Okay, so each route would have a number, and we've just said instead of this kid falls down. Instead of this kid running the stretch, he's going to run the flat. So that's one of the spaces that had existed before, and now exists in a different space in the field. Number 2 receiver is going to run the stretch, so he's going to blow the top off this kid. He's going to put pressure on the defensive back over here. Number 3 should run the bench route. Okay, and if he didn't fall down, it was a penalty too, by the way. If he didn't fall down, he would run the bench out into that space. But what you can see what happens as soon as the number 2 receiver gets in the face of this kid, everybody's getting some depth in this route, and this is a tremendously easy throw for this kid to make. Number 1 receiver just comes off the line, catches the football, turns it up the field, first down play. Route on the backside is still the climb, but he's not looking that direction unless we tag it. And we can see too that as the quarterback rolls out here, if he were not a very confident thrower, or sometimes at the lower levels where he's a kid who hasn't thrown many of those balls and he's not confident in that throw yet, which he should be. It's a pretty easy throw, all right? But if he's not there yet, he just yell go to his lineman and tuck it and run, and it'll still be a good play. Here's the same play again. And now we can see later in the game, the corner gets a little greedy. So we've run bench one time, and he got burned pretty good on him. Now as soon as the number 1 receiver, it's the same route we just showed, as the number 1 receiver runs that little screen, that little mark screen out there, the kid jumps the route, and the corner's beat right away. And the safety's not in position because he's got pressure from the number 3 receiver running the bench route out here. Okay, so it's not a very good throw, but again, it just kind of illustrates the pressure that can be put on those guys. So there's the corner getting greedy, pressure on the safety, underthrown football, but big play. So, and like I said, we could, the possibilities are endless, which is, kind of the theme, the multiple simplicity theme is, really whatever routes we want those kids to run out there based on the bubbles of space that we have available to us, we'll just tag it with that. All of a sudden, we've got a different play. Nothing has changed for the kids up front.
Couple more next one.
Okay. Here's a good example of a grab play. I believe this is the one. Maybe not. Okay, similar play, grab play. Guys heading straight across the field. The number one receiver should occupy the space that the outside backer wants occupied. Shadow climb over the top. He does throw it. I don't know that it was a good decision. The only way it was a good decision is because the kid caught it. But again, that was a kid that we felt pretty confident in out there. We threw it deep, stretch was there, could have thrown it down to the flat of the shadow. Here's a good example. This is a man beater, 203 grab. Okay, I know, defensive guys, whatever. They bumped into each other. It's not his fault. Okay, not a lot of space on the field. Okay, so he's trying to run his route like a normal wide receiver, the way he's been coached, and that kid got in his way. Okay, now as that kid got in his way, he just happened to bump the space open for the kid to throw the ball. Unbelievable. Yeah, not his fault. That's what I told the officials. It's not his fault. Don't throw the flag. He got in the way, and then the route opened up. But again, it's just a tag that we needed a man beater here to get a big play and kind of relieve some of the pressure. This was a Somerset in 2014 when they won the state title, a tremendous team that year. So we had to do something different and get our kids into space. Again, this will be the last one I'll show. It's kind of we've explored enough of this right now to kind of get the main theme of the play, but stretch, flat, shadow, climb. All right, it's disguised by motion. It's disguised by formation. A lot of things appear to be going on, but it's really quite simple play. Here comes the flat out in the field. The shadow opens up behind. The stretch is blowing the top off the thing, and it turns into a decent play. Possibilities are endless. It's a play that, if we were to switch offenses for whatever reason, if we were to, when we get a different group of kids out for football in the future, it's a play that'll always exist. The possibilities are endless. It's one of our favorite plays. So, is there anything else we can help you with? Please feel free to reach out. Thank you for having me here.